Hello and welcome to a College Huddle special, a combination West Coast podcast featuring contributors from the four Big Ten invaders from the West Coast. I've got Brandon from the Light the Torch podcast, Zed from Bruin Source, Adam from the Quack 12 podcast. How are you gentlemen all doing tonight?
Doing
Glad to
great.
be
Feeling
here.
big.
Glad to be here. Glad to be out of the Pac-12.
and then for those coming to this from something other than the Sound and the Siren feed, I am Hooligan 7 from Sound and the Siren. What are we all excited about the changing landscape of college football?
We were just talking about this before we jumped on, but no more Pac-12 network. Like that's a dream right there. Dream come true at this point.
Yes. Not playing like late night games. We have like maybe one late night game, I think, but just being able to be seen by a lot of other like regions is going to be great.
I'm not gonna lie, it literally feels like this is the lifeboat Pac-12 is sunk behind. So I'm just gonna be like, the fact that we survived into still major college football, like that feels pretty huge right now. I'm hoping it all shakes back into like eventually we're gonna be back into some form of sane conference that looks a lot like the Pac-12 did, you
Where
know?
Stanford and Cal aren't playing in the Atlantic Coast
Oh
Conference.
my god. Yeah.
For
The all
nobody,
coast
silence
conference.
for Washington State and Oregon State, just a moment of silence for them in a dying conference. Pour one out.
Yeah,
More power to them.
I will say
they ended up being better off than Cal and Stanford somehow. So
Yeah.
good for them, I guess.
I will say on the behalf of Washington fans, I don't think any of us will miss regular trips to the state of Arizona. Although it would have been it would have been a lot more fun with obviously the coaching movement that happened, but Washington's history in the state of Arizona, whether we were playing Arizona State, Arizona, or bowl games in the state of Arizona, was not laden with a lot of highlights. So I'm not going to miss that at all.
I
What about
hate the
you?
U of A, so I'm with you there.
What about not playing Utah anymore?
That's pretty sweet. Can no longer lose embarrassingly to Stanford. Like if we don't play them, we can lose last second embarrassing to Stanford.
As a Washington fan, I could identify with you there and on the Utah subject. I'm kind of going to miss Utah. Not that I like them all that much, but we have a pretty dominant record. There was a thread on Twitter that went around like, who really owns Utah? And it's like, I think Washington's like 12-2 against Utah all the time, and I'm like, the University of Washington does. Thank you.
I just want revenge at this point because they've had the better of us for the past couple years, and I just need my revenge.
I will say I'll go. If we could go back and change something in history, I'd like to have seen you guys win. Following the 2022 season, because we would have ended up in Pasadena if Caleb doesn't get hurt in that football game. And there's an argument to be made that Washington should have been there anyway, if not for the 1 year. Hey, we're not going to do divisions thing. Yeah, or 2 years, I guess. But on the flip side, sorry, Adam, beating you guys for the last Pac-12 championship ever was kind of nice.
Oh, I'm sure. And it probably helped that all the obvious like duck crap talk that was happening not once but twice in a season. It's like, all right, it's really hard to beat a team 2 times in a row. I think we got it this time. Oh my god.
That's what we said about
3
Utah.
times really. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fun stuff.
I guess do we want to like educate some of these Big Ten fans about what our schools are about? I feel like nobody knows anything about our schools for some reason, even though we're some of the biggest brands in college. It's kind of strange, like interacting with some big fans. They're like we've heard of you guys, but I'm like, wait, what? Like, what cave do you live in?
Yeah.
So,
I feel like I'm even being attacked like in different ways that I never was in the Pac-12. Like you'll say something bad about like, Ohio State or something. They'll be like, you left coast. It's just like, oh yeah, I don't hear that one
Soy
very often
latte
from just
drinking.
Yeah, exactly. Like you soy boys when you get out here. It's like,
They don't realize that the Pac-12 was probably one of the strongest conferences in a while. Like, we had a lot of top 25 teams, but people still just want to talk SEC this, Big Ten this. Now we're part of the Big Ten, and now they just want to crap on us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a lot of teams hiding behind like Ohio State and Michigan being like, yeah.
like you're not all there.
The
like
conference like loyalty runs deep there, very deep.
It definitely does. I think we're a little more. I mean, I will. That's something that's different. I think about the Pac-12 is that there's no conference loyalty. Like as much as everybody tried to do, back the Pac. But like, no, we're out for our own.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely. Yeah. Never once did I ever feel that way.
So I thought it'd be fun. Like, what's a fun fact about each of our schools that people might not know? Like, whoever wants to start us off. But I feel like there's a lot of things that they don't know about us. So here's our opportunity to educate and beat our chest a little bit. Because let's be honest, like our schools are probably better than 95% of the Big Ten schools historically, and they're just cool.
I'll say one thing I've already been getting a lot, and I'm sure you three have already heard this from some Oregon fan, and we're already like, I don't care. But that our mascot is not actually named Puddles. The name of the mascot is the Duck. Puddles is the name of a living duck we would capture in the 20s, bring to the stadium in true horrifying 20s style, and just make it watch a football game. And then, like, the ending of the duck, it was like, and then when we needed a new duck, we would catch a new duck. So that part's vague of what happened to the actual duck. You can guess, but yeah. So that's a specific thing there. And that Walt Disney, obviously, handshake deal to get the duck mascot here that we're trying to pivot away a little bit. And then this is not a school that we technically have to care about, but I always love this little fact. Arizona State, in the same fashion, to get the Sun Devil mascot, they were like, let's go get a different guy at Disney and he'll just make us a mascot. And so they got someone who worked for Walt Disney, and he's like, I'll make you a devil mascot. He'll look exactly like my old boss, Walt Disney. And that's why the Sun Devil looks like Walt Disney. That was like one of my favorite. I'll miss Arizona State. Did not know that. I truly miss Arizona for how just wacky of a school they were.
Okay.
Not for like, quality product on the field. But yeah.
Well, I guess I'll go next. USC's never scheduled an FCS school in history. We've never gone that low to get a FCS opponent on the schedule. We're one of 3 teams that don't have names on the back of the jerseys. The others are Penn State and Notre Dame. And then also, we have a winning record against every Big Ten team except for Michigan State, where we're only tied with them.
Nice. That's good.
So
didn't know that. Yeah, UCLA had a similar FCS rule up until like 2 years ago, where I think we brought in an FCS opponent. People are really mad about it, but the times are changing. Like, you got to do what you got to do.
They are.
Yeah, UW had a long history of that as well until I think right at the start of the Steve Sarkisian era, and yeah, and I know I think in UCLA's case it was Chip just had to flip the losing non-conference record in his tenure narrative.
Yeah.
Oregon
loves cupcakes.
We don't say his name.
Bring 'em on.
We don't say his name.
Yeah.
We don't.
For
I can go
obvious
next,
reasons.
I guess. Yeah. I feel like this fact is, I would have thought better known about UCLA, but apparently not. But Jackie Robinson played 4 sports at UCLA, including playing running back for the football team. So he is a Bruin. Obviously, everybody knows who Jackie Robinson is, but that's a pretty cool fun fact that I thought would be better publicized, but apparently Big Ten fans don't know that. They're like, what? He's from California? I'm like, yeah, he is. So yeah, that's our claim to fame, or one of our claim to fames, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I
John
think
Wayne actually played at USC.
Say again? Oh yeah, John Wayne.
Yeah.
That's
oh,
right.
Really? That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest one is that it's one of 3 stadiums in the country that you can take a boat to the game. And with apologies to Baylor and Tennessee, there's a difference between taking a boat on a river that's not that wide to sailgating on Lake Washington and being able, if you so chose, to leave a game at Washington, take about a 40-minute slow boat ride because you just speed restrictions through Lake Union and the Montlake Cut, and within about 40 minutes be out to Puget Sound, which ultimately you could lead out into the Pacific Ocean. So it's we call it the greatest setting. Sometimes the athletic department beats that into the ground a little too far, but it is a pretty dang special place to watch a football game. And we do have a lot of history in that building, and certainly a lot of history in the conference that we left behind, being, I think, second or after USC, Michigan, and Ohio State had appeared in the most Rose Bowls, other than those programs, in a tie with Stanford. So
I hate Washington, but I'll admit that's a beautiful, beautiful setting for a game.
I do like when they zoom out and you just see the boats there. It's like that. That's really nice.
You're gonna see a giant inflatable duck. Not this season, but next season. We're bringing that thing.
As I said on Twitter earlier this week, you do know what happens to floating ducks at Husky Stadium, right? It's a long, proud tradition when Oregon comes to town. The small, little mini rubber duckies get tossed in the urinals.
There you go. So, yeah, all right.
I wouldn't. If you want that one to be reused ever again for a future Big Ten Media Day, I wouldn't advise bringing that one to Montlake.
So how are you guys feeling about the Big Ten? Like, what's your gut feeling or instinct going in, and like, what are your expectations? It's kind of a scary place to be. It's like very unknown. Like you knew what you were getting into with every Pac-12 season. This season, it's like, I don't know. Like, is Rutgers going to be as good as they say they are? Who knows? Like, this is just a unknown
Iowa
world
offense.
Yeah. I'm afraid that
Penn State complete a forward pass.
Yeah, like Rutgers State without. I feel like they're actually building so much like secret, like they could be secretly good. That now it's flipped, and I feel like it's like we gotta calm down on Rutgers. All right, it'd be awesome if they like.
We've talked about this on our show. One of our guys, Isaiah's in law school at Rutgers, and
oh hell yeah,
he won't shut up about Rutgers. I'm like, I don't care, dude. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't. He'd be like, yo, they got this great recruit. Like, this class is coming. And I was like, I don't care. Like, just stop talking to me about Rutgers. So
that's so good.
They're hyping him up. That. They're hyping him up.
No joke. Or like, can Michigan win without
team in the Big Ten before us hyped up, saying, "Oh, you have to look out for them. Like, everyone can come in there and beat you." It's like, okay, we've played them before. Like, we've seen them before.
That was literally the Pac-12.
Yes.
Anyone can and would beat anyone. Like Washington, that should have been in the conference championship game that we were talking about 2 years ago, was because we shot ourselves in the foot at Arizona State, who is 3-9. Like, how many times did USC lose in Corvallis, Oregon, or UCLA? Going to Pullman for Pac-12 After Dark was a thing.
Yeah. Oh man, I miss
it. Can we bring back the Big Ten Circle of Suck? Like, is that going to become a thing? Because I think it should. I think it has.
It's also like
I think
every time we're talking, it'll happen. Now
with all the top 10s from the Pac-12 being here, it's definitely going to come back.
Every team we're talking to in the Big Ten doing these previews, it's like a lot of them will be like, "Yeah, you got to be ready for like big boy football. It's coming big," and we'll be like, "Okay, how's your offensive line this year?" And they're like, "Oh, it sucks." So it's like I feel like they're holding on to a little bit of this more than we're really thinking.
I feel like it's big boy. They say it's big boy football because they're not used to scoring all that much.
Yeah.
It's big boy football because it's not fast guy football. Like at Ohio State and Michigan, they have some team speed. You get deeper into the Big Ten, and we heard a lot from Michigan State fans prior to the last two seasons about, we're going to, like 2 years ago, and Washington was coming off the Jimmy Lake debacle, and we heard a lot about Michigan State, and then what happened at Husky Stadium, and then what happened again at Michigan State. Yeah.
And
They had that
Michigan
one
State
good
is.
run after the.
I was just gonna say they're like a de facto Pac-12 team now. Like Jonathan Smith is just gonna turn them into a better version of Oregon State. So
Yep. Hopefully. But
Did he
no,
bring the
like Michigan
chainsaw with
State
him?
had that one good year with all the transfers, but then after that they kind of tanked, and then they ended up firing their head coach that had that one good season that he came from the Pac-12 from CU. So
Yep.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss busting the like Colorado hype again this season because all
don't
last
get me
season
started
was,
with Colorado right now, okay?
it was bonkers.
I
It
used
was so
like
crazy.
my second team was CU since I lived in Colorado most of my life, and now it's kind of
Yeah. I know it's weird that they like jumped from like you always thought of Colorado as like, oh, they're that cool underdog team.
yeah.
And he's just flipped it so hard of like they're still actually kind of an underdog team, but that talks so much crap that you're like, I cannot wait.
That
to
hasn't
watch
done
this.
anything.
That hasn't done anything. Like
Yeah. Like I liked it when CU beat Oklahoma when they had Adrian Peterson and all this stuff, and then now they're just unsufferable.
Yeah.
But that's a lot. Like CU's run of being a preeminent program or a notable program is a long time ago.
Speaking of which, we got teams like Nebraska will be playing. We got Wisconsin. Like, where are you guys most excited to go? Like, not even necessarily this next season, but in general, Big Ten. And where would you never go? Because I got a couple places where I'm like, I'm never going.
Never to go. Okay, that's
it's a good
interesting.
question. Like
That is
obviously
good,
the
actually.
Big House, the
Yeah.
Horseshoe, both those are historical. I'm gonna flip it a little bit and talk about basketball for 30 seconds, but
Yeah.
I really want to go to
Okay.
Assembly Hall, watch UCLA play Indiana. That will be cool. And Purdue
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, I don't know. Like I really don't need to go to Iowa. Like
Yeah, like that.
See,
that's
Iowa's-
the thing. I'd like to. Like a
Iowa's high on
Nebraska
my
game would
list
be cool,
is it?
but like, I mean, like I'd like to
They
see
sell
the
out.
game, but then you're in Nebraska, and then you're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, and maybe your team lost in Nebraska, so now really, what are you doing there? Like, I
You're
would hate
stuck
that.
in Lincoln for another day, and then I don't know.
Like
Wait, so
Yeah.
why is Iowa high on your list, Hooligan?
There's a history certainly with Washington and Iowa in kind of the golden era of Husky football, the three consecutive Rose Bowls in the early 90s. So the year before the national championship year, Washington played Iowa in the Rose Bowl. That was also a year of a split national championship with Colorado, and I don't remember who Colorado split theirs with. Washington lost a game late in that season to UCLA that otherwise it could have been back-to-back national championships for Washington. But there's a history there. Certainly the Wave. I'm in a couple of group chats, college football group chats, and there's some really good Hawkeye fans that I've been talking ball with for a long time. I just have a lot of respect for the program, even though they can't offense. I'm kind of a
So
few
how do
months,
you
like,
how
the
do you get to
experience.
Kinnick, Iowa? Like what's the
Iowa
path?
City. It's I think and for me, it's also I have a good buddy that I worked with a couple of jobs ago that lives in Chicago, and he and I have talked. I just go out to Chicago, and he and I drive over for the game. It's probably a 5 or 6 hours, but just a little Midwest road trip. Go in, catch some football.
Okay, no, fair enough.
Different
Yeah.
cultural experience than seeing games in the Pac-12. That's for sure.
That is true.
yeah, I never
Definitely
been to
gotta go.
Chicago. That's a big spot. I would love to.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Some Northwestern, like awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to go play Michigan in the Big House. That and a whiteout at Penn State. That is going to be a sight to see.
I'm not gonna lie. I learned that like Penn State's kind of in the middle of nowhere. I always
Yeah.
assumed like, I can get there somewhere, but everyone's telling me like, no, you like gotta play.
No, that's
it
one
out.
of the ones I'm
drive.
probably the most reticent about because it is literally like I think it was getting talked about because UW is actually Penn State's whiteout game this year. And I think one of the people was saying like if there is an easy way, it's actually to fly to DC and go over.
Huh.
Interesting.
But
Good to know. Yeah,
because
UCLA plays them on the road
it's not
this year
that much
too.
different from going to Philadelphia and over in terms of distance. So, and then Michigan, Ohio State, Northwestern would be fun because it is in Chicago, kind of a battle of the purple teams, and then of course Wisconsin and Camp Randall because it's the battle of UW. We are the real Washington's the real UW, both in history and yeah.
I like the narratives you're writing here. You're trying to develop some of these rivalries. Love it.
Well, like on the Ohio podcast that we were on, he was trying to have us against Michigan State since they're the Spartans and we're the Trojans.
Yeah.
And he was saying that we should like have a golden sword or something like that. And I like that idea. It's like it's history and like real life history, but then also just like our two mascots are pretty similar.
He also said it would be Oregon and Ohio State. They should now be rivals too. And that there should be a battle of a like Nike shoe, basically. And the loser, I loved this idea. The loser of the game, the coach has to take off their shoes and go and give it to the other team and like sign it or something like that. He has some ideas. He's been thinking about this for a while. Yeah,
he does.
Yeah, I forget what his suggested rivalry was for Washington, but
it was Michigan.
We had Purdue, I think. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Well, and then yes, and for Washington and Michigan, there is certainly in beyond the national championship game this past season, there's also a ton of history there as well.
Yeah,
and a air of academic elitism about the
I think that works out with the Ohio State Michigan kind of bits of it in Oregon. Yep. I was like, it fits pretty well.
Yeah, there are similar perspectives on. Yes.
I think honestly they did this whole thing as a grand scheme so that some of these Big Ten schools could play in the Rose Bowl for like the first time ever. So like they would never get in there otherwise.
Indiana.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's called polling in Arizona.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't like to talk about last time Arizona visited us in the Rose Bowl, but
but that's the only time that Arizona's ever been there is to play you guys in the regular season.
It didn't end well for us last time, so I won't talk too much crap about it, but but yes, you are correct. So yeah, like what are your guys' expectations for, like on the field this season? Because I can talk about mine, but they're not very high.
Hey, go for it. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, you go first.
I can jump into it. Like, I don't think we're going to be as bad as I think what Big Ten fans are saying we are. Like, I think Vegas last time I checked had us at like 5.5 games. And that feels right. I feel like we could win anywhere. We have enough talent to win anywhere between 5 and 7 games. I don't think we're going to be like 2 to 4 games like the big fans are saying. I don't think we're going to be that bad. But obviously, like, there are a lot of question marks on this team. Obviously, the first one starting with Deshaun Foster. And I'm not even going to get into the press conference debacle. Like, that was bad.
You've already said more words than he did.
Yeah. You guys got to get him on for the worst podcast episode ever. I think I'd really like to hear that.
That was bad.
I heard he has stage fright, I think.
I heard that somewhere. He's always been a very shy dude.
I'll tell you that.
I did feel bad for him, though. Like, as much as I'm not a big, of course, UCLA fan, it's just like... Fair. It's just like, please say something. Say something.
Yeah.
Look, it was bad. Like, I do think it has nothing to do with whether or not he's going to be successful on the field. Like,
yeah.
If he wins the press conference, great. If he shits the bed like he did, like, yeah, it sucks, but I don't think it's going to have a lot of bearing on the actual season. Like, last time we had a really good, fast-talking coach, Neuheisel. He was terrible. Like, yeah, he won every press conference, but he did not win games. So, like, I'm not too worried about it. But, like, yeah, he's never coached as a head coach. He has never run a program, a major program for that matter. And, we'll see how he can kind of manage those expectations. But what I do like about him so far is he's, got the fan base engaged a little bit more. He's gotten recruiting going a little bit more. And he's not shying away from the season. He's not going out there and being like, look, we're rebuilding, like, don't expect a lot. He's just being like, look, we got to go win games. That's what football is. I respect that, and I think he understands that he does need to go win games. So I think he's doing the right things, but still, we'll see how that goes. And then I do think that we have a much better quarterback than the conference thinks we do. Like, I've seen big rankings putting like Ethan Garbers at the very bottom or like towards the bottom, and I'm like, okay, he is better than Iowa's quarterback. He is better than probably like half the quarterbacks in this conference, if not better, as good, right? Like, he is experienced, he's played a lot of football. When he was in last season consistently, like, he played pretty solid football, and he can manage a game and run an offense. I do think that his experience is going to help us a lot. That all being said, like, is it going to be enough? Like, I don't know. 5 to 7 games, maybe. If we're lucky, we'll hit that 7. Probably 5 to 6. That's all I want. Just like, get 5 to 6 games. Try to eke in a mediocre bowl or a bad bowl even. I don't really care. Just get to a bowl game and go from there and keep building that momentum. If Foster can do that, like, that is a successful season. And that's what I'm hoping for. And I think we could probably pull it off. I think we're being discounted a little bit, but yeah, we're not competing for this conference. Not next season. Not with our schedule either.
I will give this to UCLA. They did hire Eric Bieniemy, which I thought was a good hire. And you have been doing pretty well on the recruiting portion, at least when it comes to California. You guys got Nico's younger brother, Madden.
Yeah, Madden.
And then you got that one good running back. I can't remember his name, out of Southern Cal. So you guys have done pretty good with this new coaching staff.
We're trying to recruit again. That was Chip's biggest problem. He just didn't.
He hated recruiting.
Like,
yeah,
just didn't do it. So we're playing catch up a little bit, and yeah, I think we'll see. But fairly low, muted expectations. But I don't think we're going to be a complete train wreck.
All right. I guess I will go next. I'm expecting significant improvement on the defense. As Zed would know, we do have Danton Lynn. So, and we saw what he did with UCLA, taking them from 90th in the nation in 2022 or 23, and then bring them to top or like 11th in the whole nation, number 1 rushing defense. So we're expecting that type of, well, not that type of significance. Like, I do feel like we have a really talented team, so I think he can work that magic, and we will be. It can't be any worse than last year, because last year was bad, and so I definitely am expecting a significant improvement. And with that significant improvement, I do feel like we have a good chance at being undefeated at home this year. We do have a lot of our, like Penn State we have coming into USC. We have Nebraska. So we have a lot of our good or hard games at home, except for like Washington and Michigan. So I do feel like we can be undefeated. If everything goes well, if all the stars align, I do see us being like somewhere in the range of like 10-2 and eking out into the playoffs. That's with everything aligned for us. If we don't have any injuries, the back half of our schedule is fairly favorable. Like, we do have a tough first half with LSU and Michigan within the first 3 games. So that's really going to be our litmus test on where this team is going to be. Like, if we have a good showing in all of those games, I do feel like we have a good chance of eking out a playoff berth for our first time ever with Lincoln Riley. So I definitely do see that. So, and everyone was giving us a lot of crap with how our defense looked. Like, we were small last year, and it's because of Alex Grinch. He wanted a speed defense, and he made everyone smaller. Like, we can't have that going into the Big Ten. We need to be bigger, and with Benny Wiley, everyone has gained at least 20 plus pounds to their frame, so it's great to see. So I definitely do see I know a lot of people have a lot of low expectations for USC. Like I see that the line is like 7 wins or so, but I think they're significantly underestimating the defensive coaching staff that we have brought in. We have Danton Lynn, who did wonders with UCLA. We have Coach Henney, or Eric Henderson, who coached the greatest of all time defensive tackles, and Aaron Donald, who has endorsed Eric Henney plenty of times, saying that if you want to be developed, go to USC with Coach Henney. And then we also have the defensive, or like he was the former head coach at North Dakota State, and he's won multiple national championships at North Dakota State. And everyone knows North Dakota State is no slouch. They were pretty much undefeated against Power 5 teams until like last year, I think, when they lost to Washington State, I think it was. So we have a star-studded defensive staff, and people are significantly underestimating that staff here. So I do feel like with the new coaching staff, without he who shall not be named on our team, we will be significantly better on defense.
I have a question for you though, and I agree. I think Lynn is going to improve your defense a ton. But let me ask you this. Why is Lincoln Riley out there on Big Ten Media Days sounding like he's already laying the foundations for making excuses for next season? Like, his entire shtick out there was like, look, don't be surprised if something bad happens because we're behind in NIL, we're behind in XYZ thing. Like, it was such a strange direction he went there. Like,
yeah,
do you have any insight into that? Because it's bizarre to me.
I wish I can be inside Lincoln Riley's head for those statements here, but based off what we've seen, we feel like that was just kind of coach speak in a sense, and I don't think it was the greatest coach speak at that point, but everyone just wants to have the stigma that Lincoln Riley is a bum. Well, only one person, and then everyone else reiterates what he says all the time, Paul Feinbaum. So but I just think that he's underselling to the point where everyone's going to be surprised by us. So it definitely was interesting. So I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for that one.
It was just strange. The other thing on defense, I'll say, I don't think you guys have a Laya Tulatu on your team. That was like the linchpin of making that defense so damn good.
By the way, it still hurts because you know where Laya Tulatu came from.
Yeah.
And we struggled to rush the passer last year, so if
we definitely have some players that could be that person for him. Like Braylon Shelby, he definitely has the ability to be that person. And we have Cameron Fountain. He's a freshman coming out of Georgia. He was a big-time get for us. So I definitely do see that he can have that. It's just he just needs to they need to get that Alex Grinch stench out of them and start being able to be coached by Danton Lynn and Sean Nua and Eric Henderson. So as long as we can get some of that bad coaching out of there, just all the tendencies that he had for our players to do, just not knowing what the plays called in were. So Coach Danton Lynn is implementing the defense at a slow pace. Like, he's making sure that everyone knows what they're doing and where that they know where to be at all times. So he's basically making sure that you're not having to look to the sidelines and wave your hands and ask where they're going to be at. That was our biggest issue. Like, you could see a lot of the times where our backs were turned to the line because they were looking towards the sideline, figuring out where they need to be at, and then doing last minute shifts right before the ball is snapped. And then it doesn't help that Oregon was really good at getting the plays in really fast, and Alex Grinch was really slow at getting the plays in, so we had no idea what to do at that point. So
I've never seen a defense give up in a rivalry game like they did against us in a college football game. Yeah. It was wild. Like, they just weren't playing at a certain point last season.
And then you see against Louisville, like, it was a night and day defense. like they were tackling. We had one of the most. I think we were like top 5 in most missed tackles, and then we missed maybe like 5 tackles in that Louisville game. So whatever the defensive staff at that point did going into that Louisville game is going to be there still with this new defensive staff.
I personally hope Dan Tomlin was a one-hit wonder and he's absolutely terrible for you guys. But
of course you do. Yeah,
Adam, what would you say?
Fun fact: my dad's actually a UCLA fan. He went to UCLA, and he says that to me all the time. He's like, I hope. He always says, I hope he was just a one-hit wonder, or that he leaves you after like 1 year or so.
That's what I said about Chip Kelly when he went to UCLA too. Sometimes apparently it works out coaching wise.
That's what everybody's saying about our new coach, is that he's headed for Florida post.
Yeah.
No,
that's true.
Yeah, how are you feeling about Jad?
I feel what I will say, what I'm really encouraged by, and it is something I'm not saying that our previous staff, like, there's not a ton that necessarily we can poke holes in how the previous staff did, but recruiting was not a strength. We recruited well at some spots where we were talking a little bit about it pre-show. If Kalen DeBoer was still the head coach at Washington, our roster would look a little bit different. And I'd probably be making the argument that we're not going to be necessarily a favorite to win the conference this year, but easily could be the second or third Big Ten team into the playoff with the previous staff in place. We wouldn't have had the same kind of roster attrition that we had. With that said, the proof is already in the recruiting pudding. And make no mistake, there's definitely fan bases out there or parts of fan bases out there that say that Washington fans are trying to claim recruiting doesn't matter. That was not ever the point that Washington fans were trying to make. It's that, yes, recruiting matters, but so do coaching and development. And it's the best case scenario is to have staffs that do all three. This staff is a much, much better recruiting staff than our previous one. It really cannot be argued right now. I think depending on the service, we're somewhere either in the top 15 or at least into the top 20 in terms of our recruiting class that they're building for 2025. If they basically hold serve and hold position the rest of the way, that's the best first full cycle class for a new Washington football coach since Jim Lambright, which was an internal hire out of the golden era. It's a better first class than Chris Peterson signed. It's a better class than Steve Sarkisian signed. That, and these guys can coach. Jed Fish has one of the only. Arizona has won 10 games in a season 3 times. Jed Fish has one of them. He took them from 1-11 to a 10-win season and went over Oklahoma. These guys can coach. To the transience of his tenures, I'm not going to argue and say, oh, he's going to be here forever. That's not my expectation. I don't think coaches staying forever should be a realistic expectation for any program in the country that's trying to compete at the top level of the sport, because there's always going to be opportunities, whether that's to move up to a program like in Alabama or to the NFL or what have you. I think the coaches actually that are going to have a lot more longevity are the programs that are kind of that next or a couple of rungs down, where it's Cal. Justin Wilcox, if he wins 6 to 8 games, even 5 to 8 games, Justin Wilcox can coach at Cal as long as he wants to. They're not going to fire him. But at the upper levels of the sport, so
they can't afford to.
And if Jed Fish leaves for Florida's going to be paying the University of Washington $10 million in buyout money. And Washington's last 3 external hires: Chris Peterson, Kalen DeBoer, Jed Fish. Washington's still serious, folks. We're not going back to the disaster era of the aughts that had all of the folks in aughts in very, very happy. So I'm really encouraged by what the staff is doing. I think even with all of the attrition, I think Washington is also a team that's going to surprise some people. I don't necessarily think that we're going to jump up into playoff contention. That's a best case scenario that I frankly don't expect. I'd be delighted. But I also think that we're a far cry from being TCU.
Yeah, Jed Fish, when he was at UCLA, was the OC, put together some very, very, very good offenses. So the man can definitely coach. And what he did with Arizona, you're right, was absolutely impressive. I mean, that was close to dumpster fire program for a while, and he really
Perennial
turned it
dumpster
around.
fire program.
They lost. Didn't they lose to like Northern Arizona University? Yeah.
They were not good, not good for a while. So yeah, he's definitely a good coach. And you're right, like you can't control whether a coach leaves to his alma mater or not. Like you can't worry about that. That's a problem for another day. And honestly, if he does jump, like that probably means he's been successful.
Yeah, if Jed goes 5-7, I don't think Florida's knocking on our door, and I don't think he's going to go 5-7. But I also think that he's going to even need to do something pretty special for Florida to come calling, particularly with the buy. Like they're going to be spending, if Florida goes shopping for a new coach, there's a lot of money that's going to be in play because they have to buy out Billy Napier. They likely have to buy out, if it's Jed Fish, they'd have to buy out Jed Fish or whoever they like. There may be other candidates that are not going to quite cost the boosters the same amount of money that Jed Fish would.
Were you guys hoping that Noah Fafita would have transferred?
Oh,
we were I mean, yeah, of course. I'd be lying if I said that I didn't want Noah Fafita and Tetaroa McMillan on this roster. Absolutely. That said, I think we're going to be just fine. Like the big question, it was one of the questions that we tossed around, like, you know, the three biggest weaknesses for your team, or not necessarily the weaknesses, but the three biggest question marks. My joking response is offensive line, and offensive line. But with that said, Brendan Carroll has proven during his time at Arizona that the staff will play freshmen and get pretty adequate offensive line play. And overall, like, yeah, they went 1-11 their first year at Arizona. But the overall talent level between their first Arizona team and this Washington team is night and day different, even with the attrition that Washington experienced both to the NFL draft and in transfers out.
Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of like hype over Oregon right now, as there is many off season. It never happens, yeah. Most talent we've ever had on a team, which is why people are feeling that way. They're recruiting to a level that genuinely I never thought they would get to, and feels like it's absolutely that kind of thing where I'm like, as a college football fan, this whole thing is broken, but I would be so happy if there's a dollar amount that we can spend to win our first ever natty, which is something you all have. So you don't like so desperate for that. But that being said, all this hype, I try to keep it level-headed, try to keep it like reasonable expectations. We're joining a new conference. There's going to be so much more travel all of a sudden. Huge games. We're playing Ohio State in Autzen. We've only beaten them once in our entire history, and that was under Cristobal. Like, we've played them 10 times. First 9 times, they just humiliated us. So, absolutely, they could beat us again. At Michigan, at Wisconsin, one of those games would have been like our big marquee game a while ago. We did lose some talent, we lost, the oldest damn quarterback in the country, basically, and we placed him with the new oldest, quarterback. So that being said, keeping it reasonable without like too much of like the ridiculous like fan hype. We're going 12-0 in the regular season. We're winning the Big Ten, and then we're winning the whole damn thing, getting the first natty we ever had. That's where I'm at. That's exactly where I'm staying until someone humiliates us. Why not just freaking ride with it? You know what I mean? Especially since Dan Lanning will never leave us. He has decided Eugene, Oregon is where he and his future generations will be buried. He said no to Alabama, so this is where he will stay for the rest of his life.
Was there real bearing for that, though? Was there real bearing that he was going to Alabama?
The amount that us normies know, like, you can look at this picture and say whatever you want to see. So I'm going to say, oh, yes, it was 100. He was their number one guy. Actually, Georgia called up, too, and he turned them down, too, on the same phone conversation. And so he's good forever. And yeah, he should be here. I mean, like, regardless of whether it was real or not, I think we can all, and whether you're like, well, Dan Lanning, he's literally just a start, lost to the biggest rival 3 times. He lost in humiliating fashion to Oregon State. That we could have, gone a freaking Pac-12 championship game. Like, and the aggressive part of it can be nice. And then there's parts where you're like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you're on your own 30 or whatever. But I will say,
but it's
like,
still better decisions than Mario Cristobal makes.
Oh my gosh, that felt so good. Especially because the Miami fans were like, "We got your guy, and so it felt so good that last season. But like Dan Lanning, regardless of what you think about all these little things, it's that kind of stuff. Like the smart thing is that even if the Alabama thing wasn't real, to pivot and turn that into like the next day a big marketing thing with your video team, like that's the reason why, like, we're spending a ton of money, but I truly don't believe Oregon is the absolute top, like, #1 team with NIL. I do think there's some things coming into play here of like, oh, here's a good spot for me. Oh, look at these ridiculous facilities. They're ready with the check day one. It's not like, oh, you're going to get more money, but don't worry, it'll be this and that. Like, I think the structure of the NIL is really helping them. And we got a ton of money. Like, clearly that's, like, happening. But I doubt, like, necessarily we have more money than in Ohio State and Alabama and LSU with Texas A&M.
They don't have full night.
I hope we do. Like,
you're spending it. The difference is you're spending it better than they are.
I think that's the way to put it. And I'll pull this up just to show you how much I've sold my soul.
Let it be noted that I just
said
something nice about the University of Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, it's clear, right? Because otherwise, like, we're just
breaking out hives.
I swooped in so many times on recruits that we were
swooped in or swooshed
crystal
in.
balled.
Yeah, swooshed in. There you go. Thank you.
Swooshed in.
Yeah.
Swoosh.
Like there was a lot of times where we were crystal balled and then just out of nowhere.
Well, I get it. Well, there was about 100-year history before then where USC would do that to the rest of us. So
I guess that's our karma, I guess.
You've got one right now that is going to be a really good player in this last recruiting class that when everything happened with the changeover at Washington is going to be a good player on your defensive line going forward in Rachimana Bulabalavu.
Bulabalavu. I struggled trying to say his name when I was doing my video with him. I was like, okay, Ramana Bulabalavu.
I'm glad you tried, though. So many people don't eat it. They'll be like, yo, what's up, R? Or they're just like, like they just say, what? Yeah. What's a fun, easy to say nickname for you? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
We need not Ohio State or Michigan. Like, I'd rather Rutgers win the whole thing than one of them. Like, that would truly be funny.
The not so dark horse now that.
Yeah.
What would be funny, what would be really funny this year would be like the Circle of Suctopia thing and Iowa actually finds some semblance of a functioning offense and Iowa wins the conference.
Oh, man, that would be a bummer.
Hell would have frozen over.
Yeah,
the media would lose their mind, and to some extent that would be the best part of it.
It would make me really think about, like, what am I doing as a fan? Like, for us, like, we're trying to transition into the bad guy, like the team that would be like going against the good team in the sports movie, and then we can't even beat Iowa. Like, that would be just too much for me. I don't know. Or honestly, like, if one of the Pac-2 schools made it even to the playoffs, I would be so thrilled. Like,
I don't understand what their situation is going to be like. Like, what is their
West.
Yeah.
That's where
it was rumors. Well, I'm sure it's rumors. Like, literally, someone just posted an article, but like they're like, "Oh, Big 12's actually thinking about circling back to them," but who knows?
Yeah, none of the alignment's over.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, because there's rumors that Notre Dame is going to be joining us, or they should join us. Mm-hmm. They just need to let go of this independence life. Like, it's not that cool anymore.
No.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as the ACC like implodes, which it feels like could be any second, this is all gonna reopen everything again. I'm actually surprised the ACC hasn't imploded yet already. Like, isn't everyone just suing each other at this point? Like,
Yeah.
what is that?
Suing
Florida
each other
State
for
is
the
leading
right
that
to
charge
sue.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild.
They're doing everything they can to implode the ACC.
Yeah.
Still
I mean,
still standing.
yeah, this might be a bit of a challenge considering the hype level that's happening for Oregon. But Adam, and I think it's a question for all of us. Kind of some under the radar strengths of the team that you're looking forward to this fall.
Yeah, under the radar. This is kind of tough. I think it's not being made at because, like, obviously, I'm gonna take offense that we were not picked first to win the Big Ten. But all these voters, they would never, ever, ever pick a West Coast team just coming in to win it. Plus, Ohio State's Ohio State. But I like one thing I think it's a little underrated is like I got confidence in this O-line. Like I think this O-line is pretty dang talented. Enough combination of veteran and then fresh talent. Because a big thing, especially like my film reviewer on our podcast, he's been talking about like if you're taking like 3, even 2's kind of iffy, but like 3 linemen to be your starters in the season, things may be rough for a little while. Even if they're veteran linemen, like that gelling is very, very, very important. So like maybe you don't want to go with over the 50% mark, for bringing in this talent. I think they've done a really good job, and I think like the offensive line, like obviously most important thing in football, basically. So like I feel like that's going to take us a long way, especially in this Big Ten rough football. Like I think both of our lines, I'm hoping, are going to be huge strengths. And if that's the case, then I think like Jordan James has a really good chance of being like the best running back at the end of the year in the Big Ten. Like I would say those are maybe I don't know. We're so hyped right now that it's hard for me to say like what is undergrad because it's like things can kind of only go wrong because people are talking about it so much.
Even with all the questions, if Washington had Oregon's offensive line, I'd pick us to win the conference.
I mean, yeah, I think it kind of comes down to that.
I mean,
so it
with
makes
this
everything. Yeah, makes everything easy. Yeah. Well, what about y'all?
Ted, how about you? What do you think about UCLA?
I mentioned Garbers already, so I'll change my answer a little bit here. But
another Washington transfer, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, we're just University of California, Washington.
Brother to
right
Chase,
now.
right? Brother to Chase.
Yeah, yep, younger brother. Yeah. I would say our receiving core is actually very underrated. And the reason why is because Chip Kelly refused to use our receivers last season. But
he did not want to be there, did he? At all.
Everything he could to get out of there, and they wouldn't fire him, so he just left on his own.
Oh,
That's amazing.
Don't get me started. That we'll be here for another 2 hours. But J. Michael Sturdivant is a legit number 1 receiver with like potential NFL talent. Like he's going to be very good if we can actually get him the ball. Titus Mokiao Atimalala, he didn't play last year, but he's been turning a lot of heads in camp and over spring. I think he's been good. Logan Loya was a good slot guy for us last season, like sure hands. Decent speed there. Like we have some guys who can make plays on the receiving core that I think will turn heads. And then we have a quarterback who I think can actually get the ball to them. Like we're not Iowa. We can offense a little bit here. I think Bieniemy will be able to put together a decent offense, figure out how to get the ball to these guys in space and let them work. So I'm excited to see them actually get some spotlight this season because last year they were unfortunately just not utilized really well. And it's funny, like you play CFB 25 and you use UCLA's playbook. Throwing the ball in that playbook is painful. Like it is. I'm looking at these plays. I'm like, what are you supposed to do here? No wonder these guys got like 200 yards last season because you just can't get them the ball. It's just not a good playbook for it. So I'm excited to see them shine. I think they've been underrated a little bit.
Something that would be underrated, I would say, about USC is no one's talking about our wide receiving core. If anything, they talk about Zachariah Branch, which everyone knows he was an All-American as a freshman for just like kick return and punt return. But we have some great wide receivers, and if you watch the Louisville game, you'll know who they are at this point. Jacoby Lane, he's 6'4". He's lengthy, or he's a little light, but he's getting heavier. But then we also have Deuce Robinson. He's a 6'5". He is deceptively fast for a guy his size. And then the one that no one really talks about, other if they did talk about our wide receivers, Makai Lemon. Makai Lemon basically, I would say, is like the Amon-Ra St. Brown version of, or he's the Amon-Ra St. Brown for our wide receivers. But our wide receiver core is severely underrated, especially when CFB came out with like who their top wide receivers were. None of us were being, none of our players were being talked about. And then we also have veterans like Kyron Ware Hudson, or Kyron Hudson now. He took out the Ware for some reason. And then Kyle Ford. Like, I was sad when Kyle Ford left to go to UCLA, but then I was so happy that he came back because he's a reliable player. He's definitely a reliable player, and he's a big guy too. So he has good hands. He may not be the fastest, but he definitely is a reliable player. And so if people need to be talking about our wide receiving core, and I think Jacoby Lane is probably going to be our leading receiver. And even though everyone says Zachariah Branches, and if you play Zachariah Branch in CFB 25, he is a cheat code. But Jacoby Lane, who's not in it for some reason, he's gonna be the best wide receiver on our offense. I feel like
Kyle Ford is like the poster child for how badly utilized our wide receivers were last season. Like, the guy's talented.
You guys gonna use him.
Yeah. I'm gonna hold my tongue here. Like I said, I don't have much nice things to say about Chip Kelly's.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I think for Washington, I mean, I'm not gonna call an under the skill position talent on offense under the radar, because I don't think it is. When you had one of PFF's highest rated running backs in Jonah Coleman that transferred up, plus a guy who scored 13 touchdowns the year before in Cam Davis coming back from injury. You have Will Rogers, who's the second in terms of passing yards, second all time in the SEC, and fourth in touchdowns. And then you've got a guy who managed to accumulate 2,000 receiving yards at Cal in Jeremiah Hunter, and a guy that just couldn't get playing time last year because of Rome Odunze, Jalen McMillan, and Jalen Polk, and Denzel Boston, who's absolutely going to be a dude.
Can you not bring up those names again for the rest of the podcast? That'd really help me out, anyways.
PTSD.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you know about the space where Rome threatened to come back. So, I mean, I think he signed his deal now. So
that
there,
cracked. But... I love him, and I love Michael Penix. So, like, Rome, that was one of the funniest things. I heard about that, and I loved it so much.
But it's certainly not going to be the skill position talent on offense. I think one of the things, I think the biggest under the radar thing, and where Washington is really going to surprise some people this year, and it's a combination of coaching and some of the returning talent and some of the talent that we brought in. I think our defense is actually going to win us some games this fall, and that's given where we were last year. The defense, I don't think, actually was as bad as it was sometimes reported to be, and when it needed to in that stretch of 10 games that we won by a touchdown or less. It made the plays when it had to, and some of that, I think, was on the offense not making the plays that it should have, that it would have made things a little bit more comfortable for the defense. But our new defensive coordinator, Steve Belichick, has proven in the NFL that even with not necessarily elite level or top of the NFL level talent, to put together top 10 in the NFL defenses by being very, very multiple. And so it's like, I think you're going to see different formations, different packages week in and week out. And there's definitely some talent and some body types and ways that you can move things around to be very disruptive, particularly when we're going into a conference where there are going to be some teams that are going to run old school. We're going to run left. We're going to run right. We're going to run right at you. Stop it. And then I'm like, okay, if we can figure that out, I'm not worried about them passing the ball, because there's a lot of returning talent in the back seven, and the back seven's actually, I think, going to be one of the strengths of the team. We've got two longtime contributors that are going to start at linebacker, and one of the best linebackers in the conference, in my opinion, in Carson Bruner. The defense is actually going to be pretty darn solid. Again, the big question is the offensive line, and if Washington's offensive line is average, Washington's going to be very dangerous to some teams. But I think the defense is actually going to be surprisingly, I think in some ways, possibility that Washington becomes kind of a traditional Big Ten team in some ways and runs the ball a lot and then play actions and wins with some defense.
Yeah, you guys probably have a quarterback that can throw the ball more than some of the other Big Ten teams, so
Yeah.
that would work.
He's done it a lot in his career.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't want him to get hurt. But his understudy that this staff brought in with him from Arizona. You look at that kid's highlight tape, and he has the potential to be a very, very special player at the University of Washington, and that's Damon Williams. I think we'll see him in 4 games. I hope we don't see him in more than 4 games. But that's going to be a really fun career to watch at the University of Washington going forward.
Cool. I know we're over the hour mark at this point. We could keep going. we can call it. I don't know. What do you guys want to do? I could talk about this all night. So it's
yeah. Well,
I
earlier
could go
you
a
asked
little
us what player we would want to take from another team.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
I was thinking.
Yeah, we can do what player we wanted to take from another team, and then who's your favorite player on your rival's roster.
Oh, that's good. I'll have to actually.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That.
So, Adam, go ahead. Who would you take if you could pick another player from
If I could pick
one of the
another
other 3 teams
player from one of y'all's team to be on I would pick Dante Moore. No. Gary Bryant Jr. No. I picked Jabbar Muhammad, I think. No, hold on. I just gotta, while things are not blown up at Oregon, I've got to put some of these. I'm going for the off season, Natty. We're not getting the real one, probably. So, no. Who would I actually pick? It'd probably be because I'm a dumb guy, and even though a good defensive back would be way better to have, I'm not sure. I mean, maybe y'all could help me out, but who would really be a drastic improvement from who we have? I don't really know, but I do know I love Zachariah Branch, and it would be a funny jab to be oh, he returns kicks for Oregon. He chose to transfer to Oregon, and he's only on special teams. I would love that. So that will be my answer, mainly for how much that would suck as a not Duck fan, That would be mean, yeah.
I was sad that Gary Bryant went over to Oregon.
That was pretty. I mean, if I remember, the team he left was stacked at receiver. I kind of got it, but we were pretty happy. Yeah, we were happy to get him.
We did have a stacked wide receiver room when he left, and I think he would have done really well.
Yeah.
I think he would have done really well with Lincoln Riley, but. I get it. He wants more playing time, and we did have some good receivers in that starting role, so I get it. It. And I have no ill will towards him. When I see him play, it's good.
Yeah. You got Travis Dye. That I did the same thing. Okay, good job, man. Happy for you.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, he was great. I mean,
he's such a great guy. Not just his personality is great. He's just a good leader.
Mm-hmm. And with Jabbar Muhammad, I'd never seen a fan base turn on a player, do a 180 on their opinion on somebody so quickly. They'd be like, he's such a hack. He just, I hate when he does that little box thing. Oh yeah. I mean, I was like, there's a reason why they're winning. And then immediately when he switches, every single person's like, oh, that's who we wanted. Oh yeah, he's so good. Oh yeah, it's very college football-y.
I wish he wasn't a Duck, but I also will say that was he the biggest loss for Washington this past offseason in terms of the people that are still playing college football? Not by a long shot.
Yeah, I think he is getting a little overhyped of like so many people being like, this was the number one transfer. This is I think he's good, but I think there's some pretty dang good players out there. I
mean, we lost a kid that was basically an All-American at center, or damn close to it. So, and we have an offensive line question. So there you go.
Yeah.
So honestly, my answer, I'll jump in and I will take a player from Oregon, and it's a player that shouldn't have gone to Oregon if if like our current staff was in charge when he was being recruited and our current approach to NIL was in place. I'd say it's your left tackle and Josh Connerly because he's from Rainier Beach.
Solid. That's a solid answer.
That's my pick.
Yeah.
Josh Connerly. We had him for the last visit at USC, and then everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Josh Connerly's to SC." His whole family was there. There's so many pictures with there, and then out of nowhere, Oregon. I was like, "What happened?" I had a video ready to say he was committed to USC, and then like all this work is gone. I was so sad. So I guess I just piggybacked off Hooligan. So sorry.
I mean, a good left tackle is always going to be a pretty good answer.
Yeah, but we do have a good left tackle that we have right now. So I'm fine with that. But those before him, it would have been nice.
I will take. So I think my favorite player and the player I would take are two different guys. I echo Adam's sentiment on Zachariah Branch. He is a fun player to watch. So favorite wise from Crosstown, definitely him. But if I was bringing a guy back, and this would be a guy coming back because he left us, would be Kamari Ramsey. That kid is a player. I think we've brought in some solid safeties, but he manned that spot and was just so good. Was like the linchpin of that secondary. And that was a big loss. And I do not like him anymore for doing that. That felt gotta do what you gotta do. I get it. I wish him well, but man, that was a stab in the back too. So yeah, I would bring him back in a heartbeat though. Everything would be forgiven if he was like, "Yeah, I'm coming back."
Would you bring him back if it meant Chip Kelly also comes back though?
No, absolutely not. Like nothing on earth could convince me. Nothing on earth. Nope. He can stay. He can be a lifelong Trojan at that point. We don't want Chip.
Brandon, what would you say in terms of your favorite player on UCLA's roster right now?
He was actually a USC Trojan before, but he only made it through spring practice. Jay Toya. There was some issues going on. There was a video that I'm not going to speak of, but Jay Toya, he was in the transfer portal, wasn't he? And I thought he was going to come to USC, but then there was rumors that he's going to go to Texas, and then he goes back to UCLA. So I was really hoping that we can get him, so it would give us a little bit more beef at that defensive tackle spot. So I would take him back.
He single-handedly is like the one guy in our D-line that I think is going to make our defense at least decent this year. I think we'll actually be pretty solid against the run, and that's mostly because we have Jay Toya and alongside like Gary Smith, Kenny Williams. But he's like the one guy that I think we'll be seeing Sunday on in the future because he's just that good.
Yeah.
Adam, how about you? Any have you answered in terms of who you'd take off another roster? Or you said Zach Branch?
I said Zach Branch, but if we're going true
who's your
rival,
favorite Husky?
Yeah, who's my favorite?
Who's your favorite Husky?
Well, I would take Carson Bruner because of the emotional damage that it would do, and he's a good player.
He's a great player. He's a legacy, and his dad was on our national championship team. Yeah, that would be.
It's him being like, nah, like that. That is what I would really like, and then for him to like sit for a little while. Like again, it's that I once did this with like fantasy football. My friend loved Tom Brady so much, and I got the first overall pick, and I was willing to torpedo my whole season. So for my first pick, I chose Tom Brady, and then my team name was the Brady Bench, and I benched him all season long and would take no trades.
Wow, Eddie, that's real good though.
There's some spite deep in your heart, sir.
Yeah, like that's why I'm into this sport. So yeah.
Well, for me, I've got to say my favorite Duck is. I think if he doesn't, have a long career in the NFL. He's definitely got a future. He's a future Academy Award winner, and that's got to be Terrence Ferguson. I was really worried that he was going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life.
Now I'm getting it. Yeah. Multiple times. Yeah. You almost got that multiple times.
I'm hurt. I'm like, oh wait, it's this leg. Oh wait, it's that leg. Oh, like that's just.
Sometimes you got to look over to the coach to really figure out which leg is hurt. You know what I mean? Sometimes they know better than you. I'm down. I was really hoping, because I am a Seahawks fan. I was like, I could root for Michael Penix for Seahawks. That sounds fun. Like maybe even
particularly with our offensive coordinator.
Yeah, I was like, that sounds pretty fun. I thought maybe that would happen, and then Atlanta, I guess, saw those Oregon-Washington games and were like, apparently he is him. Let's get this guy, yeah.
Or maybe the Washington-Texas game.
Yeah. I mean,
what was your thoughts about him being drafted to Atlanta?
Mine on Penix going to Atlanta. Penix. I'm really happy. I mean, I'm really happy for Mike. I don't think the Seahawks. I would have been shocked if the Seahawks would have made that selection. Even with at some point the Seahawks will need to take a Husky. There's a long history of really good Huskies that are at positions of need for the Seahawks, and they still don't draft them. Baker, Taylor Rapp. Mm-hmm. The list just goes on and on and on. But I'm really happy for Mike, and I think it's unfortunate, and I'm happy for Mike that he's a top 10 pick. I think it's certainly a weird situation, but then again, it's also I think in the NFL last year there were more quarterbacks that got injured, and so more quarterbacks started in the NFL last year than different quarterbacks started than in any season previous. So, and Kirk Cousins is not exactly a spring chicken and is coming off an Achilles injury, so Mike could be called upon pretty dang early, and he's got some weapons down there. So from that standpoint, I'm certainly happy for him.
I was hoping he would have ended up in Minnesota, actually. Him and Justin Jefferson. Jordan Addison.
Back in purple.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
That would have been a scary
matchup. So I'm glad he didn't. Yeah. It's gonna hurt. It hurts me a little bit to my soul to root for the Bears, but I'm gonna have to pull. I gotta pull for Rome, because Rome is, we're both Rome and Mike, and a lot of the guys from the team are easily in my top 5 and top 10s of all time favorite Huskies. Just the way they represented the university, the kind of the moment defining plays.
So does this mean you're rooting for Caleb Williams then?
Yeah, because I want I honestly, the Bears have gone from one of my least favorite franchises in the NFL to a franchise that I'm at least indifferent, if not maybe slightly positive on. I like Caleb as a player. Certainly nothing but respect for Roman, and so much appreciation for what he did at Washington. So don't like the Packers, don't like the Vikings. Was certainly pulling for the Lions last year because my alternative was the 49ers on the NFC side, and that's not going to be a team I'm going to root for. So
I think Chicago could be like the Detroit Lions this year. They're going to sneak up, and they could win it all, the division, but I'm definitely, they have that Detroit Lions vibe from last year.
They improved their O-line.
Yeah, again, see, you got to get a Penei Sewell on your team, then everything improves.
That's another player that I wish would have went to USC.
Oh my gosh, those are the players that really started to be ratings. They don't only matter, but sometimes they kind of matter. Sometimes they know what's up.
He was so dominant.
Oh, he's a really good one, and just for his size, it's crazy how much power he has,
and speed.
It just makes me realize, man, what would Chip have done if he was recruiting an offensive line at Oregon a little bit? Like instead of Scott Frost actively recruiting against, he would go to the media and be like, you just can't recruit to Oregon. People don't want to come here. While he's on staff, Scott Frost is saying that. And most Duck fans are like, yeah, I guess he's right. I mean, if he's saying it, must be right. And this is the best we've ever been. It's just nuts.
He tricked you all.
He's at.
He tricked you all.
He tricked us all, man. It was crazy.
Tricked the whole country.
Yeah, and I'm hoping he tricked Ohio State because that'd be pretty cool.
Is he at
Here's
Ohio
the
State?
thing.
right now?
He's the OC.
Yeah, he's OC.
Chip Kelly's
Here's
the
thing.
OC.
Oh, sorry. I was talking about Skip Frost.
Oh, Scott. Yeah, Scott. Frost is.
I don't even know if he's on
vacationing
a
somewhere.
staff. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what he's doing.
Here's the thing about Kelly, though. Like, I think him being an OC, where he doesn't really need to worry about recruiting and can let somebody else handle it, doesn't need to worry about talking to the media, doesn't need to worry about like raising money and doing all the head coach stuff that he should have been doing. I think he can still put together a good offense. He'll still put together some. Yeah. Like,
honestly,
they'll have the talent.
Particularly with a quarterback thing, it's probably a better runner than he is a thrower. So
yeah, they'll have the talent.
I think so.
Yeah.
And Ryan Day's going to listen to him. It seems like that's why he got Chip Kelly. He's like, you're my mentor. Just do the thing, and finally we'll get a national championship before my fan base kills me, even though I've lost like 6 games or whatever.
On the flip side,
we lost to Michigan.
I think Ohio State cares more. Honestly, I think Ohio State's okay with not winning the national championship this year as long as they beat Michigan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, 100%. I will say Chip may also just decide to trot out like 11 tight ends or do all sorts of weird formations in like key junctures of a game and then completely like tank their season, which is that's also very possible. So who knows?
Like, we need to cut the NIL. This needs to be going for dietary measures. We need more money on that.
Jeremiah Smith at left tackle.
Yeah, sure. I'll never. The first time I really saw that about Chip Kelly, that I was like, oh, I don't think he likes the people portion of this game, is when I forgot who we beat even, but we just got a huge win. It was in Autzen. The interviewers like talking, and all these excited Duck fans are behind. They're like, yeah, and he goes, hold on. And he turns around, and he's like, will you shut up already? And it was like, oh, he's not in it for the fans.
My God. Yeah.
But perfect OC brain. Like, that may be perfect. Who knows? I don't know.
I think
at that point,
it
makes no sense that he went to the NFL then, too.
Yeah, no, and he tried to treat them like college kids, and I think there was just a collective no, and
especially in Philly.
Yeah,
Can't do that.
No joke. You guys watching any of the Olympics? I would imagine you LA schools are like, there's all our guys.
Well, USC has the most athletes in the Olympics.
Oh, really? I should look that up.
We have 65. Then UCLA is right behind us, actually. So
did they let Bronny on the men's basketball team just because?
just to be the best with his dad.
Yeah.
Another first that they could say. The first father son in the Olympics.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been surprised by that.
That'd be nuts, but that would have been funny. Oh, man.
Yeah, I think UCLA has like 61.
Really?
From what I saw, I think. I may be wrong on that.
So this is what's confusing. I've seen for all of the schools like a variety of different numbers, and I don't know how they're counting. Like, I don't know why it's so difficult, because I've seen Stanford as the number 1 school by some counts. Really? Well, Stanford also like fields like 1,000 different random sports that nobody else plays, so they just have a ton of athletes. But so the official numbers that UCLA released were 49 Olympians, really? I think. Yeah. So I don't know. I've seen it all over the place, but yeah, the what did they win? The women's team gymnastics. We had a gymnast on that team today.
That's right.
Yeah. Jordan Childs.
And one of them was Oregon State too. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well. Fun fact: Simone Biles was actually committed to UCLA before she went pro. So
really,
I'm gonna claim her a little bit.
Might as well,
just a little bit.
She was commit's a commit, you know.
Yeah, so USC signed and everything. Is saying 66 right now, so I guess that's 66 right now.
Dylan Brooks is becoming Villain Brooks. That's like my favorite thing in the world.
Is he in the Olympics this year?
Canadian basketball team.
Yeah.
Well, he's always been
Canadian.
Brooks.
Oh yeah. Well, like he never did anything that bad. I mean, from my perspective. So maybe I'm wrong. He had
You
that
got some
huge
green
ass
tinted
swamp.
glasses on there, bud.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
I couldn't stand that dude when he was at Oregon, and I
Well,
still
yeah.
cannot stand
He's
that
so
dude.
obnoxious.
He's so good. He's the best heel in the league. I love him. He's
what
like
is
squaring
he
up
in
the league?
LeBron and getting owned. I love it.
Yeah. Where is he at now in the NBA?
I don't even remember. That's how big of a fan I am. Yeah.
I think I don't.
He
And
got
I don't have the
traded
number
and-
for Washington in the Olympics right now offhand. I know we have. I think double digits, and I think certainly the most notable is
Honestly, since
point guard for our
Washington
women's
hired
basketball
away
team.
our track coach, like duo, like our track's not quite been that elite level that Tracktown should be. Unfortunately.
Can't say that I'm
Cool.
sorry.
Anything else we want to chat about, or we just want to
No, I
want
think,
to call it,
I think
or
we could call
keep
it
talking
good, and then we
about
could do it.
Dylan Brooks? Because I don't want to keep talking about Dylan Brooks.
Yeah.
No, not yet. I'm all
I
What
think
about
we
that
could-
flop? You guys remember that flop in the tournament? That was one of the most legendary flops of all time.
I think we can certainly revisit at some point. Maybe do a mid-season check-in of the Pac-10, the Pac-12 invaders.
Oh,
of
that's
the Big
good.
Ten,
I'd be down
and
for
then
that.
a postseason
I love
recap,
that.
and then certainly
I'll be in here. Our Oregon will be like 3-3, and I'll just be so depressed.
We'll see a completely different Adam then.
Oh, maybe you won't see me. Maybe it'll just be you three.
we'll definitely have to wait until Ohio State comes to town to have that conversation.
Yeah.
When do they come to town?
The 12th, October 12th, I believe. The
Okay.
ticket prices are ridiculous. It's like $370 for standing room right now.
Oof,
Really?
Yep.
crazy.
that's wild.
It's a good week of
Have
football.
you guys
and,
ever
like,
seen like the Big Ten fan bases like truly like mob your play? Like Nebraska, I
Yeah.
was shocked.
You see
When
them
we played them.
whenever the Rose Bowl game is in town.
Yeah.
Like they just show up and they're just everywhere. They're like all decked out in their gear, and I'm like,
They
you're at
travel.
the beach.
Yeah.
Why are you in a full uniform at the beach? I'm so confused. But like they're just everywhere. It's wild.
It's almost
They're
like
like
they're from
Pittsburgh
portions of the
fans.
country where they don't want to actually be until they find reasons to go somewhere else.
They make a whole deal out of it too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
But yeah, Nebraska travels really well, and they always fill out the stadium no matter how bad they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Nice
gotta
to
give it
State
credit for
traveled
that.
well when they came
That's
out
some
here a
good-
couple years ago.
Yeah.
I
You
give
gotta
them credit
give
for
them-
that.
Yeah. It is cool.
Yeah, let's definitely revisit midseason. That'll be fun.
All right, cool.
Do
I'm
we
down
want
for
to?
that.
Do you guys want to shout out your shows where you can find them?
Good call.
Yeah, you can find us at the Light the Torch podcast. We're going to be streaming during the season Thursday and Sunday. So pre-game, then post-game after that, and we have our new Twitch channel, Light the Torch podcast, as well for Twitch. We're going to be streaming CFB, and if you guys want to catch some smoke, by all means, let us know.
Nice. We're Quack 12 podcast. We've been going since the Willie Taggart era at the
Wow.
University of Oregon, so we've been going for a while. And we got a YouTube channel, Quack 12 Podcast, Twitter for now, Quack 12 Podcast, website. We do weekly episodes, even during the off season, every single week. And we'll probably get like 2 or 3 during the season coming up. And yeah, it'll be fun. Pretty goofy. We try to keep like a Bill Walton mentality, RIP, for
Rest in
covering
peace.
sports, Yeah. That how crazy is that too? That Bill Walton died like when the Pac-12. That is like you couldn't write that.
I
like,
was shattered, man. I was
Yeah.
so sad.
It hurt.
No joke, man. It was so sad.
I'd argue that the No Truck Stop podcast got a little more shattered, but
Yeah,
different way. But
they got pretty shattered.
Oh,
That was nuts to watch in real life too. Yeah. It's like that's a take, I guess. Yeah.
Oof.
Especially
That was
podcast
brutal.
called No Truck Stops. Yeah.
Yeah, I can shout us out real quick. So yeah, we're Bruin Source. Kevin and I usually record weekly. We usually get our episode out on Wednesday or Thursday. You can find us on X or Twitter, or whatever you guys call it these days, at Bruin Source. You can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, basically all the podcast platforms. So yeah, we're always talking about UCLA, and we're always open to talk more about Big Ten stuff. And yeah, it's been fun. We've been doing it for a few years now. I don't know the exact date we started, but couldn't name the coach. It might have been Jim Mora. It's been a while.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've been going since the first season or the second season of the Jimmy Lake era. We do
That's
a
my
lot less
favorite.
swearing and a lot less cursing. We're on Twitter and Instagram and certainly on YouTube. We're at Sound the Siren UW. Certainly during the season we record pretty close to weekly. We did a big deep dive. We premiered a new recruiting evaluation scale this past weekend on an episode that dropped today, actually. We'll be revisiting the defense in a couple of weeks, the defensive commitments in the class in a couple of weeks, and then getting into our season previews. And then certainly we'll try and have you gentlemen or some of your colleagues on as the games against Washington come up. But we're there, and of course, happy to be a part of the College Huddle, and it's been a pleasure chatting with you gentlemen this evening.
Yeah, we just joined the College Huddle, so I'm excited. It's going to be
Glad
fun.
to have you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thanks,
Let's
guys.
take
Talk
over
soon.
this conference. Yeah.
Yeah.
West Coast, Best Coast.
There you go.
Exactly.
There you go.
Always. Always. Always.